is held by the Biomedical Security Research Center at London Metropolitan University. I'm Professor Lijun Shang. I'm the director of the center. And the center focus on the biosecurity education and relatively studied and research in the CBRN area. And we have the global connections, and that's a reason we have the Professor Matteo Gerlini to visit me as our visiting professor at my center. To kick off our serious research talk, I've been honored to ask Professor Matteo Gerlini to give the first talk on his specific area in the nuclear security and education, etc. And this talk will be recorded, and also if you have any questions, please put into the chat box. We will answer them collectively in the end of the talk. And if you have any other concerns, do please write in the chat box. And without further ado, can I just welcome Professor Matteo Gerlini to give a talk. Matteo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lijun. The honor is mine to open this new cycle of your webinars, and is also being honored, and I also been honored to have the possibility to share ideas, those from different domains as the nuclear and the biological. And I hope this could pave the way to further collaboration. And I will thank all my MA students who are connected to follow this strange class today, or I hope it will be interesting for them. I'm pretty sure of that. I will thank also the PhD students of the Siena group who has connected with this webinar, and also I've seen along many friends are connected, and thank you to everybody. So without further delay, I will start to share my screen that usually is one of the most difficult things during the webinar. And okay, I tested it before, so I'm pretty sure that you can see my first slide. And okay, the topic is nuclear security, its relation to the CBRN, but in particular, I will try to go deep on the history of nuclear security, and because I think it will be relevant to approach the overall CBRN problem, and also to understand this my perspective. Of course, I have not a strictly technical approach to the nuclear security. I have a political and historical approach to nuclear security. I will try to put into an international context that create the same concept of nuclear security. And let me start exactly with concepts and realities regarding this problem. The main political triggers of the need of nuclear security were basically three. The first one, and everyone are related with non-state actors and with the nuclear terrorism. The first one, it was the creation of a nuclear black market at the beginning of the century or at the end of the last one. And the second one is the fact that this kind of non-state actors cannot be controlled by the nuclear safeguards. We will see very soon what I'm referring to. And the third one is that this kind of criminal environment could be the hotbed for a possible, a feared action of nuclear terrorism. So something of harmful related with nuclear material, but that not belong to a state or government action. This is directly. This is a very relevant thing, and to feature our things, because the nuclear domain, not only the nuclear domain, this is true for all the CBRN, is related to these three S: safety, safeguards, and security. Let me give a rapid overview for all the people who's not very familiar with these concepts. Safety, I took the definition from the IAEA. Nuclear safety covers ensuring proper operating conditions for nuclear installations, preventing accidents and mitigating the consequences if they happen. So the keyword is accidents, something that is not wanted, something that happened because of a human error, or for a technical error, or for a flaw in the installation, everything that is not related with an willing malicious act or willing act from an authority. This was the first concept at the beginning of the nuclear era, because in the very beginning, the only problem related to nuclear was exactly safety, the accidents, because there was no problem of nuclear proliferation, there was no problem of nuclear security. The only problem was exactly to have nuclear installation safe. As the problem of the nuclear weapons that belongs to the presentation of today take the floor, we had a very, very important thing in the history of 20th century related to the to the strategic thought, to the nuclear energy, to the nuclear weapon, to the armaments in general, that are safeguards. Safeguards is a set of techno-juridical instruments applied by the external authority on material and activities. This is the definition of the IAEA. The keyword in this case is exactly states and external authority. So the action of the governments as the ruling authority of the states were overviewed and inspected by external authority that ensure what? That the government not diverted nuclear material from other use than peaceful use, because the common ground of the superpowers of the United States, of the Soviet Union at the time, was exactly that nuclear cooperation is important, it was relevant for the progress of the nations, but the nuclear cooperation should be peaceful. So they agreed to not transfer nuclear military technology to other states. And so safeguards were created exactly to allow the cooperation, the transfer of technology, but also to monitor that the transfer of technology was not diverted from the original use, civilian use, peaceful use, to a nuclear military program. And this was the history of nuclear proliferation. You have plenty of cases, not so much actually, but many cases in which from peaceful use, the nuclear cooperation shifted to military ones. Successful or not, this is not the problem. And this was the problem for the relevant decades for our debate related to nuclear weapons. And because at the time, and we are told, consider the first set of safeguards were reported in the Euratom Treaty of '57. Then the IAEA implemented very shortly their own safeguards, and the cornerstone, or maybe the zenith of this time, was the NPT, in which the non-proliferation find the best international binding agreement. This was the problem, because only a government could afford something related to nuclear technology. No non-state actors could afford nuclear technology, could manage nuclear material, because they are sacred, they were taken. They were not so much nuclear material. The same expansion of the nuclear energy was not so enough to justify the possibility, or maybe to allow, sorry, the possibility for non-state actors, but also to a private firm. We had a lot of private firms that worked in the nuclear sector, but they were all under a strict control by the nuclear authority. But the same expansion of the nuclear technology, the possibility to find other way to enrich uranium, to manipulate plutonium, but basically to enrich uranium. Thomas Park Hughes, in the history of technology, called it the technological momentum. So when the same force of the technological development changed the landscape beside the political or the cultural willing. This development created the environment in which a non-state actor, a nuclear black market network led by the Pakistani engineer A.Q. Khan, to create a network of nuclear, a black market network of nuclear materials, selling nuclear technologies to, for instance, North Korea for a benefit of the North Korean nuclear military program. So although if the final recipient of this black market was a government, the provider wasn't a government. So the safeguard system of the Non-Proliferation Treaty cannot deal with this problem. And this was exactly the rationale for security. Security for the IAEA, you may see the definition is broader, respect the other one, because we are dealing with a theft, sabotage, unauthorized access, illegal transfer, or other malicious acts involving nuclear materials or other radioactive substances. But the key concept is exactly criminal acts run by non-state actors. Regardless if behind these non-state actors there were some governments or other state authorities. But on the front row, you have non-state actors, and this was the rationale for security. What was the landscape related to the international agreements and resolutions dealing with? We had a first relevant convention in the 80s that was exactly in the middle between safety and security. So the Physical Protection of Nuclear Material Convention, CPPNM, provides exactly all the guidelines and the requirements for physical protection of the nuclear facilities, and also for, and basically for unauthorized access, and so for all the human actions that could basically try to have a sabotage or something related with this kind of malicious act, some damage to the nuclear installation. Also some theft, but in general, they provide all the international framework to secure physically the nuclear installation. Nothing related to the trigger and also the malicious use that non-state actors could do with nuclear materials or similar. The United Nations Security Council Resolution 5040 of more than 20 years later, the CPPNM, provided the international framework to create the what we called CBRN. So this resolution identified the similarity in securing the biological, the chemical, the radiological, and the nuclear domain, and creating a common approach to manage this kind of harmful technology. To the first convention related to acts of nuclear terrorism, the exempt. So we moved from the nuclear black market to the potential risk of an act of nuclear terrorism. We were after the 9/11. We were in a world in which the Cold War was over, as you know, and the main problem for this new international system was recognized very often in this international terrorism. And so the possibility to have an act of nuclear terrorism was recognized as one of the top of risks for this new security scenario. And before, or maybe around it, we had two relevant partnerships and initiatives that are not international agreements or international treaties. The first one was the Global Partnership Against the Spread of Weapons and Materials of Mass Destruction, still existing today. It was a partnership promoted by the G8. So it was out of the usual international agreement process, because it was actually a partnership of coalition of governments that recognized the common problem, and they acted together, providing resources and capacity building, everything in order to deal with this problem without an international binding agreement. And the other one was the DICINT and let's say the Global Initiative to Combat Nuclear Terrorism of 2006. That was a Russian Federation and United States governments promoted initiative in the same way, but with this big political investment by these two governments. The relevant aspect to keep in mind about this year was that Russian Federation and United States shared the same vision regarding the problem. And this allowed the beginning of a completely new initiative related to nuclear security, that are the nuclear security summits. It was an appeal of, at the time, US President Barack Obama. He calls to secure all vulnerable nuclear material in 4 years from 2010. So the basic problem is to secure nuclear material. For the first time in the history, there was the actual possibility that nuclear material could be stored, could be lost, could be, because we have a plenty of nuclear material. The dismantling of the nuclear arsenal created plenty of nuclear materials. And so this problem to secure it was one of the main technological trigger for the nuclear security summit cycle. But on the political level, The Nuclear Security Summit was a cycle predefined of 4 sessions, starting in Washington, then Seoul, The Hague, and the conclusion in Washington from 2010 to 2016. We met one every 2 years to fulfill exactly this task, and to achieve this task, we had also some other collateral initiative in training, capacity building, in the creation of nuclear security, of a nuclear security environment. Just to repeat and clarify again, the illicit trafficking of nuclear materials from criminal organization and equipment can be a tool for a nuclear terrorist action. The safeguard and the non-proliferation didn't tackle with, and also the safety measures didn't avoid all the risk of such acts. So safeguards and safety were useful, of course, in the creation of a security environment, but we cannot act directly on the problem of non-state actors and the risk of nuclear terrorism. This is the point. And the NSS had this process, was not a process aimed, for instance, to the achievement of an international treaty. You haven't, still today, a binding international treaty related on nuclear security as the NPT. We opted for a different approach, more similar to the G8 approach. The first aspect was the gift basket diplomacy. So some of the governments participating in the Nuclear Security Summit gathered together to fulfill a specific task that they identified as a priority for them. The elimination of plutonium, for instance, or the capacity building and the creation of the training for the staff to implement the nuclear security at the level, or to contribute to the role of the IAEA in this new scenario of nuclear security. Another aspect was the recommendation for the national nuclear security plans. So all the governments participating in the nuclear security summits deal with the creation, the establishment of a national nuclear security plans with some guidelines provided by the IAEA. So with a certain system optimization in the implementation of these plans, but completely belonging to the national authority. So no binding agreements as the NPT again, but this kind of bottom-up approach to the problem. And this approach, in my opinion, was working at the time. Because let's give a look at the world at the time of the Nuclear Security Summit. So governments concerned about the threat of nuclear terrorism, there was a shared concern regarding the threat of nuclear terrorism. And in particular, the three superpowers, call as you prefer, the United States, the People's Republic of China, Russia Federation, recognized the risk of nuclear terrorist attack. And at that time, the profile of a potential nuclear terrorist was inside the jihadist groups like Al-Qaeda, for instance. So if the hand that could harm to a nuclear terrorist attack at the time was seen as I call it jihadist terrorism. And all these three governments had problems with the jihadi terrorism in their own countries, or related to this jihadist environment. What was the event that changed this shared coalition of regarding the nuclear security? The beginning of the crisis between Ukraine and Russia. Before the last summit of the 16th, the Russian Federation occupied the Crimean Peninsula, and this politically disrupted this consensus. And because we were talking about a bottom-up approach, this was, in my opinion, the main problem for the overall nuclear security architecture in the world. Because we moved from security providers to threat incubators, still in the group of countries that participated in the nuclear security summits. To date, fortunately, jihadist groups didn't carry out nuclear terrorist attacks. Fortunately, so we may think that this was avoided by the works of the nuclear security summit. But anyway, this didn't happen. But we had, with the war in Ukraine, a different scenario regarding the non-state actors. In the war in Ukraine, we had different phases. You remember the phase of the little green man, that were Russian armed forces disguised, and you remember also the role of contractor companies, the most famous, or maybe the main, it was the Wagner Group. So this is to say that we seen the action of, you may not call non-state actors in the full term, because they had, especially the little green men, that were Russian armed forces disguised, but there was not a clear link with a government of a recognized state of the United Nations. That's the problem. And they had relation with the government, but you cannot deal with them as a direct and clear and declared expression of the government. And this was a problem for the nuclear security, because according to the nation-based approach of nuclear security, the one which will deal with nuclear security risk coming from this subject, from these actors, is exactly the national government, in this case, the Russian government. So the rhetoric question that I pose, who would have to act? It is because, according to the overall nuclear security architecture, it will be the Russian government. And this triggers a crisis of the former nuclear security paradigm in a certain way. We are living in the middle of this crisis. The Russian Federation government cannot act, nor wants to act, on any nuclear security breach caused by these non-state actors. I discussed at this point during the Alva Myrdal Center conference last year, hosted by the Alva Myrdal Center at Uppsala University, and we had a vibrant discussion about that, because because of course we are not dealing with a pure non-state actor, but I may also revert the question and saying it is difficult in the nuclear domain to have a completely pure non-state actor. You have in a certain way a certain relation with the government or with the state. The problem is exactly relating to the command and control. These actors are not subject to the direct control of the government. And for the Wagner Group, we have seen when they tried to march toward Moscow. The other aspect, of course, is this kind of non-state actors who acted in the war in Ukraine are in fact not interested in terrorist attacks in the manner of jihadist terrorism. I cannot provide any proof for that, but it is, well, yeah, we can deduce by the behavior of these non-state actors. They are more interested in seizing some materials, goods from the occupied territories, and in this case, the nuclear materials are part of that. And moving toward the conclusion and also the point that I would like to discuss with you, we will move toward the current risk scenario. Because, of course, you cannot rule out that these non-state actors may use radionuclear materials in paramilitary or non-state warfare. So on the theater, the concernment regarding the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant were related also with that, not only with the nuclear safety because Zaporizhia was shelled or because the dispersion of nuclear material or radiological sources in the environment, that this is still current and is still very relevant, but this is another part of this chaos, of the collapse of the authority, of the fact that we have, for the first time in the history, a war theater in which you have nuclear power plants and nuclear installations. It never happened in this way before, at least. You know that Zaporizhia was probably the bigger nuclear power plant in Europe. So it was the first time that we had it. And moreover, the corruption and the criminal organizations in the Russian Federation weakens the implementation of the nuclear security plan by the same Russian state authority that they are still running nuclear security in the Russian Federation. I am completely, biasless on that. Of course, there were the Nuclear Regulation Authority in Russia. They participate in the IAEA. They are doing their own best to implement nuclear security and nuclear regulation in the Russian Federation. But we cannot ignore what was the situation, especially in Ukraine, in the areas under the control of the Russian forces. This one of the new problems for the nuclear security. Maybe the problem that undermine all the nuclear architecture, or the nuclear security architecture, but in a certain way it may trigger again a return on the origin of the rationale of the nuclear security summit, on one of the basic features of the nuclear security summit. Let's say we may think about a nuclear security summit reloaded. Okay, such nuclear security challenges cannot be tackled in the same way that before, so we may not count on the cooperation among all the states of the United Nations in the same way of before, because of the war, because of also of the change in the new international system, actually. But it remains valid, and probably it is more valid today that groups of states resuming a gift basket diplomacy could achieve results without requiring, again, international agreements and without requiring the consensus that we had during the Nuclear Security Summit. The regional approach, in my opinion, it is still valid and is also the only way to try to step forward from this situation. The enforcement of regional capacity building, exchanges of information, integration of the national security, of the national nuclear security plans could be the tool to step forward from this situation. The risk is not highly perceived, but the risk related with the nuclear power plants, with the nuclear research plants, is still a top priority for the security of today. And you have to consider that still in the nuclear security community, the cybersecurity has a role. And because, of course, a cyber attack to a nuclear power plant could create a nuclear security issue, of course, an infringement, a crisis. And these are part of the so-called hybrid warfare that we are experiencing today. And this kind of disruption of the supply chain, this kind of disruption in the mutual communication regarding tracking of nuclear material is still one of the main problems in the security environment today. I think that a relaunch of the investment in the nuclear security could benefit the overall CBRN protection architecture. We had, for instance, also other risk in this kind of warfare related to the chemical and the biological domain in the hybrid warfare, of course. Definitely, we may say that a nuclear security infringement will be very, very harmful also in the psychological aspect of in our society. And this is one of the reasons why the enforcing of the security architecture at the level of the state could be, of the group of state on a regional level, could be the tool to try to enforce and to face these new challenges that are outlined. I would stop here to leave the floor to comments and questions. Thank you for your attention. Thank you again to Lijun and the friends of the London Met. I stopped the sharing of my screen. Okay. And now I turned out my camera. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthias, gave the wonderful talk on the brief history of the nuclear security and also what it means for the CBRN international agreement, and certainly refreshed our mind about some new current issues, and especially the details of the summit and how the people are going to do. I think it's quite useful. I open the floor to everyone. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand or put your question in the chat. All right? And first of all, I want to ask several questions to kick off these sessions. Obviously, the nuclear security is slightly kind of compared to all for the scientists in the biomedical sciences, biological sciences, like me, is kind of the slightly remote area, and mainly need a lot of the technical support to achieve those things. So can you just tell or make a comments on what these dealing the nuclear security issues globally, what's the lessons or what the suggestions you may want to give to the people like me to do the biosecurity, and how this view can be integrated or anything can be borrowed from you. That is my first question. And second question is, obviously from your talk, I sense there's a lot of the role need played by the state parties, and the state party has to get an international agreement or whatever it is. And from the biosecurity point of view, I think there's a lot of work is done by the life scientists and through the civil society to promote this biosecurity issue. I want you to make a little bit comment on the role of the civil society and the state parties, what kind of role they play into security issues or in the general security issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Lijun. Very relevant questions. Related to the first one, there is, in my opinion, I'm still reading on the journals. There's, yeah, a certain form of skepticism regarding the harmful use of a biological weapon that sounds similar to the fact that at the end, for instance, in the nuclear domain, nobody wants really use a dirty bomb or use radiological or nuclear materials to act a terrorist attack. In this way, this kind of skepticism remind to me also an attitude in the community of the historians of in the international history regarding the fact that at the end the nuclear weapons were achieved by many governments, but no one government wants really use them. I'm skeptical about this skepticism because history is very long. The human experience is very long, and one of the main errors that we have in general in the human experience is to think that all the people share at the end your own attitude regarding the world, regarding to humanity, and so on. And so the fact that some people retain that it was not at the end so useful to use a biological weapon or a nuclear or a nuclear security, so a dirty bomb or something similar, but at the end also the same nuclear weapons, these remain valid. I think we cannot rely on that. And we had also, in a certain way, a demonstration still during the war in Ukraine, because we have some claims by some Russians, prominent figures that said we are ready to use the nuclear weapons. So you may say it is a bluff, or they are not talking seriously, but you cannot rule out that they are talking seriously. I think this is a bias, and for instance, for the biological weapons, for instance, one of the main argument in favor of this skepticism is that you cannot control the effect of a bioweapon. But this is not completely true. And because probably you are in a position in which is not relevant for you that you are using a bioweapon to control their effect. Conversely, maybe your interest is to have the maximum effect of the bioweapon. So this is the reflection that was triggered by your question. And so I think that we have to prepare to that. In a certain way, moving to the problem of the on a completely different level, the experience of COVID. Okay, it was completely different, but we find many governments not ready, not prepared to deal with a pandemic. But you had in the past many people who said there is a risk of pandemic. In this case, maybe there were more consensus regarding the risk of pandemic. But there is also some people that say, okay, a pandemic it was as the swine flu. And what happened with the swine flu? Nothing comparable to COVID. I think we should reflect on this past different experience, maybe related with the safety in a certain way, certainly not with the security. And regarding civil society, I think that the main role that civil society could have, it was exactly, in a certain way, it was different. In the nuclear domain, we had the experience of a pugwash movement, a civil society concernment regarding the problem of nuclear weapons, because there was the risk of nuclear Armageddon, because we were during the Cold War, because we had scientists who say that humanity can destroy the planet many, many times with this nuclear weapon, and so on. This is true. I'm not arguing that. But we haven't the same mobilization regarding the security issues. I think for multifold reasons. One of them, for instance, if you deal with a global civil society without focusing on certain area of the world, without focusing on certain cultures or civilizations, if you prefer, you may find that in many cases, the same definition of terrorist is not the same, okay? But remaining on the role of the civil society, I think that the education, that it is in the middle of the between state and non-state, because the education, many universities are run by the state. There is a state framework, legal framework for education in many states, but some universities are not are not state-owned, so we may also put them in a part of the civil society. I think that education has its role. For this reason, I think that your center is doing an extraordinary work in creating a framework for biosecurity education. And I think this is one of the main asset for civil society in this debate.
Okay, thank you very much, Matthias. And we have the questions from the audience.
Yeah.
And can you speak such a... Yes, okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the very interesting presentation, Dr. Gerlini. My question is, with what's happening around the world right now, specifically the geopolitical tensions and how the global arms control regime is both considered to be weakening and changing at the same time, how can the CBRN international agreement serve as a confidence building mechanism between major powers or even on a regional setting?
I'm sorry, who's talking?
Yeah.
Can you introduce yourself, because I don't see who is talking. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. My name is Sachida Pachapin, and I'm a recent graduate from Nuclear Safeguards Program from Polimi.
Ah, okay. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sorry.
I'm the master of international nuclear safeguards. So great to meet you again, I think. And
Yes.
So regarding your question and regarding the CBRN, because I have a little interruption in my connection, sorry. It was related to the role of nuclear in the new CBRN landscape, or sorry?
No, can I just repeat the question?
Sorry, yeah, if you please. Thank you.
Yeah,
okay, yes, no worries.
Yeah, her question is, in light of the current geopolitical tension and the weakening or revolving of the global arms control regions, how can a CBRN international agreement serve as a confidence building mechanism between the major powers or regions?
It could work as a confidence building, but frankly speaking, it seems to me very far to be reached, and actually probably, or maybe it is not a priority for some governments to have it. It seems to me that is in the new international political landscape, the main efforts are aimed to consolidate, to strengthen the internal security system respect to the international one, and especially for the major powers which has all the means and all the resources to do it without external aid, and moreover, we perceived external aid as a sort of risk. And I think the attitude of the new not new 100 days today or yesterday, I don't remember, of the president of the United States, it seems to me that they are moving toward not a multilateral world. We prefer bilateral agreement. They are disregarding the former multilateral approach, also the not binding one. So it seems to me that in principle, I agree with you, but it seems to me that it's not affordable at the time. And for this reason, probably I said, we concerned people, we should move toward more affordable task. And in this way, I think that a regional or a group of a willing subject could be more effective than aiming to a general overall agreement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sachinda.
Yes. Any further questions from the floor? Don't be shy. Raise your questions. You can just use your speaker and ask any questions. Any more questions? Okay.
It's okay.
If that's the case, I want to ask another question.
Okay.
Obviously, you talked, you focus on the history, the international agreement, and because I'm on the biosecurity side, and I just want to, you certainly will discuss this in the future or some point. I just want to make a little bit comment to see the bright side of the nuclear security issues, and particularly linking to the fast advanced science and technology, because the fast advanced science and technology bring a great impact on the biosecurity issues, and particularly with AI and other synthesized biology, nanotechnology. What's your view or what's your comments on the fast advanced science and the technology in the nuclear security range? And do you have any comments, or what are the views on this?
Thank you, Lijun, for your question. I have a very initial comment thought on that, and it is exactly related to the fact that especially the safeguards, the non-proliferation treaty system worked exactly because in the nuclear you need to have these materials, plutonium or enriched uranium, that are not affordable to everybody. You have the possibility to classify some technology, and in general, you had the possibility, the technical possibility to restrict the access to this technology. It is not the same in the biological sector. Probably for intrinsically characters of the biology in general, but also for the spreading of the technology. The same problem of artificial intelligence that is transversal to this domain. We have seen that we haven't any the only effort to regulate, to set up some governance principle for the artificial intelligence were run only by OSD. The European Union is doing something related with that, but for the rest, on the international level, we are in the complete anarchy in the Marxist meaning of the term. And I think that in biology, the only aspect that prevent from a bioterrorist attack was exactly the one that I presented you before. So the common sense related to a biological attack is not very useful. It risks to harm also the same actor that ran this attack and so on. But I think we cannot rely on that. And for this reason, I think that the nuclear has this difference, is more manageable respect to, and so for the biosecurity, you have many, many more challenges to deal with. So also on a scientific way, more interest on that to try to figure out, to forecast what will be running for the security scenario in the coming years.
Excellent. Okay. The Professor Ken White had a question. Ken. Oh, Catherine or Ken, I forgot. I think whatever it is. Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. Sorry. Professor Ken White has to join another meeting. He has to go. So, Catherine, you have the question. Can you just speak?
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Gerlini, for your presentation. I just wondered, what are your hopes for the 2025 MPT Preparatory Committee meeting that is currently underway, and what do you think can realistically be achieved?
Thank you. Thank you. I've just read a CPRI report on their participation in the review conference of the MPT, and frankly speaking, we are living in a world in which the MPT is not more given as a basic assumption. Some people began to question the MPT. That's the reality. So I remember in the past one prominent political scientist of the US talked about the fact that the spreading of nuclear weapon at the end was a good thing because it creates a sort of Hobbesian balance between or among the nuclear powers. I'm afraid that we will face this kind of situation. And this is, I think, connected with the question of Lijun before regarding the civil society, because I'm pretty sure that in civil society, many people didn't share this vision. The concernment regarding the nuclear weapons was strong, and I think it is still living among the scientists, among the concerned people, pacifist movements, and so on. But the risk, I think, for the MPT is to be a sort of to follow the doom of the INF. If this will not happen immediately, but at the end it could be the outcome for the NPT. In particular, I think that this could be also related to this long debated as you may call American retreat and so on. So the fact that the security providers will not be more international one or based in the regional alliances and so on. And also the possibility to opt for giving to regional subject all the things to become little power. And the nuclear in this case is one of them. This is not the current debate, of course, but I think there is an elephant in the room. Yeah.
So if I might just ask a quick follow-up question.
Yeah, sure. Please.
So recently we've seen, I think, 4 or 5 countries with announced their intention to withdraw from the anti-personnel landmine treaty, which is obviously a concern. I mean, of course, you should always, it's up to a state whether they stay within a convention or a treaty. I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that in terms of the impact, the message that it sends to other kind of arms control and disarmament treaties. Do we think that this is opening the door perhaps to allowing people, allowing countries to weaken other treaties?
The NPT afforded the stepping out of North Korea. But if 5 countries withdrew from the NPT, it will be a real mess, I think. It depends by the countries, of course, but if a government decide to withdraw from the NPT, it will not be because the government is in principle against the NPT. Probably they withdraw because they are willing to undertake a nuclear military program. And so the audience is more sharp in this case. So because not the majority of the member countries of the NPT can afford a nuclear military program, but some of these members, yes, and 5 it will be, I think, the end of the NPT, actually. Moreover, we have to consider that one of the basic tools of the NPT was exactly the opening of the international cooperation on the nuclear sector in return of the acceptance of the renounce to achieve a nuclear weapon. But yeah, exactly. I think that the situation could be the following. If a government could find on the international cooperation outside the NPT all what it need to achieve its own nuclear military program, the main tool of the NPT became completely useless. And it depends by the nuclear power, by the current nuclear powers, I think. If some nuclear powers decide, still remaining in the NPT, but to provide assistance to countries which withdrew from the NPT, this will be the end, I think, for the NPT. Definitely.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm concerning about the timing. If any further questions from the floor? Okay, if you have further questions, you can either email me or email Matteo directly. We are very happy to answer your further questions. And let me thank you, Matteo, again for this interesting and wonderful talk. And we hope to have more talks and further discussion in due course. Thank you very, very much. I'll close the webinar.
Thank you, Lijun. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone's attention and joining the webinar. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.